Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Chatham Select Board meeting of November 1st, 2022. Let the record show we started promptly at 5:30. Pursuant to Governor Baker's July 16, 2022 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of his March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31st, 2023, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted via in-person and remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. First order of the business is to do a roll call for and convene the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is a roll call for our members here. And I'll start with Mr. Nicastro down in the end. Mr. Nicastro?
Present.
Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Shell?
Present.
Mr. Metters?
Present.
The chair says present, and Mr. Bean? Bruce is present as well. And Megan, welcome. Megan, hi Megan, welcome. You're present as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the first order of business is a Community Preservation Committee application update by Gloria and Katie. Gloria McPherson, our Housing and Sustainability Director, and Katie Donovan, our Director of Community Development. So please come forward and say your piece, and I think we'll be fairly efficient about it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As an update, the Community Preservation Committee applications for funding for FY24 were due today. And we submitted 2 applications on behalf of the trust. The first one is for $500,000 for a general allocation for the purpose of land acquisition, exactly the same as what was submitted last year and was used to help support the purchase of 2 properties, the Meeting House Road property and the 1533 Main Street or Buckley property. The second application that was submitted was also for $500,000, and this was for a new program, for funding for a new program that we are beginning to explore and develop. It would be for a buy-down or deed restriction purchase program. Preliminarily, we've looked at other communities that have similar housing issues and have used this program. One of them in Vail, Colorado, others in Massachusetts. And we are beginning the process of developing this program. But once we have some parameters that are specific to Chatham, we would like the program to be funded so that we can start purchasing deed restrictions. I think one of the strengths of a deed restriction or buy-down program is that unlike the whole process of land purchase and designing the site and construction and everything, which can take years to actually produce a unit, this has the possibility of actually getting some units on our subsidized housing inventory, right away. It would be one of those things where someone would want to sell a restriction to the town would buy it, and it would be deed restricted. No fuss, no muss. Do you have anything to add?
Sure. So again, as Gloria mentioned, we will be establishing parameters, which we will bring back to the trust for endorsement. But one of the ideas is that regardless of where that program goes moving forward, we do know that we are going to be losing some affordability restrictions on some of the chop house properties. And we thought, regardless of anything, if we start putting money aside for those to buy down those deed restrictions in the future, that would be a good practice on our part. So again, this could serve twofold, or we would continue to seek additional funding in future years moving forward for this type of program, or to buy down the restrictions on the chop properties.
Okay, I think okay, thank you very much, and we're going to turn it to the board. Corey first, and then we'll go around the horn here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I do have one question on the second application, and specifically with the chop houses, because I remember sitting down with Debbie Aikman and Florence Selden, and there was a lot of concern about the chop houses and what potential mechanisms would be used to try to keep them into the program and not lose them, because we had lost several of them, and this is back when one particular property came up and hit the open market. But at that time, there seemed to be a lot of hurdles, limitations of what we were allowed to do. I'm getting impressions that may has come to our benefit a little bit, and there's some better opportunities. I'm just looking for clarity, because at that time, I thought our hands were somewhat limited, tied, and we couldn't do a whole heck of a lot. So can you just kind of clarify where we are with potential options, I guess?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So DHCD has informed us that there's nothing that we can do currently, right now. But the idea is that by having, this money earmarked for future purchases of, for future buy downs, when the restrictions expire and the properties go to sell, we will then have the funds available to do that at that time. But DHCD has informed us that we could not approach homeowners at this point in time to do so, as we had discussed previously. This is actually looking to the future to create basically, an additional fund or earmarked funds for this purpose, as well as, starting a program for the deed restrictions.
Okay, so just one follow-up. So I know, and I remember us having the limitation that we couldn't approach a property owner at the time, or a homeowner at the time. But if we have the fund set up, when is that window that we can have a dialogue about this particular property? I guess that's where I want to understand the process.
Our understanding is when the properties go on the market. If the properties go on the market, at that point in time, that's when we would have the opportunity to approach.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Gloria? Mr. Shell, we'll go right around.
Yeah, actually, that begs a couple that I'll come to in a second. But I just wanted to be clear, I'm supportive. I think this is a easy thing to support and approve. But with respect to the second one, I take it that you would come back to this board before you acted to effect a single transaction, or would it be some sort of a bulk authorization? How do you foresee that working?
We would absolutely come back to this board. We would envision this process being continuing our research with what other communities are doing, kind of developing a program that we would expect feedback from the trust on. We would need to have some sort of parameters or criteria established for the types of units that we would want deed restrictions on, how much each one is worth, how we go about negotiating. All of those things would have to be really clearly hammered out. And then the next step would be to do an RFP and put it out there to see if there are any Chatham residents who want to actually participate in the program and actually have us purchase a deed restriction. So before we would use any of the funding for that, there would be a couple of steps that would be that would involve you.
So I don't want to get into all the details here, but the notion of an RFP at some point in time sounds a lot better to me than the idea that you have to wait until a homeowner puts the property on the market, for the simple reason that it just seems to me to be a very difficult thing to effectively compete with the open market in trying to buy a deed restriction while they're trying to sell the whole property. If, as you seem to be suggesting, you can put out an RFP and acquire deed restrictions in the absence of the property being on the market, I think that would be a better situation. But I'll let you figure that out before I pursue it any further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shell. I'm going to go to Mr. Bean.
Am I to understand that the RFP to buy a deed restriction would not be available to the members of to the owners of the chop houses?
That's something we need to follow up with DHCD.
There may be a restriction that would prevent
Yeah.
it. Okay,
Is that it, Bruce?
that's it.
Shereen, Ms. Davis?
Thanks, Jeff. Gloria, you had mentioned that there was a couple of other Massachusetts towns that are doing this already?
Eastham is one of them,
Eastham is doing
actually. It is.
Oh, wow, okay. All right, that's good to know. I'm supportive of both of the funding projects. I do want to note that, and I just mentioned this to Gloria and Katie, that the Cape and Islands Municipal Leadership Association is going to be doing has invited George Ruther, who is the author of the Vale projects, to come and speak to the group on the 18th about this kind of program. Though it's not the same programs, it has similar elements to it. So I'd invite you all to do that. The other thing I did find out is, and just so you're aware, there is it's my understanding there's a competing application for a regional outreach for affordable housing that's going to be applied to for Chatham for $100,000 from an organization for a project in Orleans. So it's setting us up into the same scenarios we had last time, and I think that we need to be aware of it and know that it's coming our way. And hopefully we'll see that CPC is going to support all projects. Thanks.
Is that for regional affordable housing, Shereen? from
Yes,
Orleans?
regional affordable housing in Orleans.
Thank you. Mr. Nacastro?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very supportive of both of these requests. I did have a question that's probably better directed to Alex, but I don't see that she's on. Is she on? How much money does CPC have? How much money do we have in the CPA funds now in terms of reserves for affordable housing, and how much do we anticipate coming in FY '24? Because I think last year they took in about 1.3 million. Is that right,
If I may?
Alex?
Go ahead, Alex. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Alex Falala, Finance Director. We're estimating that CPC will bring in about $1.5 million in estimated revenues for FY 2024, and also that we have availability of about 1.2 million of available funds. However, today was the deadline for applications, and we're already over $3 million in applications, so not everything will be approved this year.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Castro. And Megan?
Hi, I am obviously supportive, very supportive of both of the initiatives. My only question is, and I think it's been answered, but I just want to reiterate, on question 2 or on subject 2, when we fund this, while I understand you will have to come back to us separately, this would apply to any house in town that goes on the market that we would like to create a deed restriction on, correct? I mean, it wouldn't be relegated to ones who've previously been affordable?
That's correct.
Okay, great.
That it, Megan?
That is it.
Okay. I'm certainly in favor of both these items as well. I have one quick question on the chop houses. How many have been sold where we kind of missed out on the opportunity to have a deed restriction? How many units are up there, and how many have we kind of missed out on thus far?
There were, I believe there were originally 32. There are 21 that are still remaining in the program, and I believe either 6 or 7 of them have deed restrictions in perpetuity. So because they have sold during the time period, DHCD takes the opportunity to make sure that the deed restriction, survives that 40-year expiration, and so that those have deed restrictions in perpetuity.
Okay, that's helpful. I think the point that Megan just made is helpful as well, that we needn't just think of chop housing. We can think, we cast our net a little wider, if you will, if we could find something that looks attractive. Anyway, we need a motion. Ms. Davis?
I move to support the 2 FY24 CPC applications as put forth by the staff.
Second.
A second, okay. Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Mr. Metter?
Aye.
Mr. Bean?
Aye.
Ms. Story?
Aye.
And the chair says aye as well. Very good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you. Okay, we need a motion to adjourn the Affordable
So
Housing
moved.
Trust Fund.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Shell?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Bean?
Aye.
And Ms. Story?
Aye.
And the chair says aye as well. Thank you very much. Well done. Okay, the next item on our agenda Having already, we have, already have a quorum here. Okay, so we'll open the meeting, the select board meeting itself, and I'll take a roll call there. Mr. Nacastro?
Present.
Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Shell?
Present.
Mr. Metters?
Present.
And the chair says present as well. First order of business is the minutes of August 10th, 2022, as a joint meeting with the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. A motion, please.
Motion to approve?
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, and comments. I think we had the NITs submitted early, which I think is very, very good. I appreciate that. But Mr. Nacastro.
Mr. Chairman, I think these were prepared by Pam Jones at Water and Sewer. I just wanted to note there were a number of votes referred to on page 1 and on page 3. I think we should insert the vote was by roll call in each instance, because that's how we generally report the votes in these hybrid meetings. So that,
I'd have to go back and watch the tape in order to.
yeah. So I know it was by roll call.
Yeah.
You're all there. So I would insert that sentence, the vote was by roll call in 3 places under reorganization of the committee. I know this is their committee, but these are our minutes as well. And then on the third page, it's right in the middle where it says Bruce Bogardus made a motion to adopt. Right at the end of that paragraph, I would put the vote was by roll call. Then it says Michael Schell made a motion to adopt. I would put the same sentence in that, at the end of that paragraph. And then under meeting adjourned, the same sentence under each of the 2 paragraphs, at the end of each of the 2 paragraphs.
Jill, did you get that? You get that? Okay, any other comments on these minutes? They've been moved and seconded. Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
And the chair says aye as well. Thank you. The minutes of October 18th, 2022.
I'll move the approval of those minutes.
Second.
Okay, edits, comments, suggestions on those minutes? Yes, Mr. Nacastro?
Mr. Chairman, I have edits in 2 places. On page 5, under C, the middle paragraph, which begins Select Board Member Dean Nacastro, in the second to last sentence, which is about 8 lines down, which reads, he said that any such agreements, I would strike the word agreements and put any such significant issues. And then at the end of that sentence, I would insert the clause, before agreements are finalized for approval. So after the word discussion, before agreements are finalized for approval. And then on page 6, under D, about 2/3 of the way down, there is a paragraph that begins, it was suggested that a member of the Economic Development Committee. In the last sentence, hope was expressed that the group would start from scratch. I'd like to insert, I know this is what I said, I believe that it was accepted. I would put a comma and then insert, as well as to consider the draft BOH document. As well as to consider the draft BOH document, comma after the word document. Those are my edits.
Okay. Fine.
Okay.
Any other edits of the minutes of the 18th? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. The minutes of October 25th.
Second.
Any edits, comments, suggestions on the 25th? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
And the chair says aye as well. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda are public announcements and agenda item requests. I do believe our town manager, Jill Goldsmith, has an announcement and an introduction, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have Chief Mike Anderson, Police Chief Mike Anderson, here to introduce our new Deputy Chief, Police Chief Lou Malzone. So if you two could please come to the podium, that would be great.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Jill. Honorable members of the Select Board. So, 16 years ago, Lou Malzone joined the Chatham Police Department. In that time, he served in the following capacities: police officer, motor officer, detective, and sergeant. Also during this time, Officer Malzone has served in the following assignments: court prosecutor, firearms instructor, Cape Regional SWAT team member, Cape Regional Detectives Group member, Cape Regional Drug Task Force member. Also during this time, Officer Malzone has accumulated numerous hours of professional development training, management and supervision training, and has earned his master's degree in criminal justice. He has been involved directly or in a support capacity in every major investigation handled by this department since 2009. He has a great passion, enthusiasm for policing in our community. He constantly displays professionalism, leadership, and empathy. As Deputy Chief, some of his areas of responsibility will include detectives and investigation, court officer and records management, evidence and property management, and professional standards and internal investigations. I wish him nothing but success in his new role. I'm extremely proud of Deputy Chief Malzone, and I'm confident that you and the community will be also. Honorable members of the Select Board, I am proud to introduce to you Deputy Chief Lou Malzone.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, members of the Select Board. Your confidence in my abilities mean a great deal to me. I'm committed to the Chatham community. I'm committed to the Chatham Police Department. I'm proud of this new role. I'm looking forward to assisting the chief in improving upon the department's professionalism and on the department's culture. And thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay,
Thank you.
congratulations and welcome. Lou.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to add, he was officially sworn in on October 31st, but now we are in the process of identifying a sergeant to fill his opening. And we've also had two recent lateral transfers of two police officers that are already academy trained and ready to go. So I'm hoping for, at the beginning of December, a formal promotional recognition event. And I will certainly extend the invitation to you all. I anticipate I anticipate that date, maybe the first or second week of December. So I'm looking forward to these big changes in the department.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the drinking water and pumping update. We did have a report in our package. I see that Mr. Temple is on the line. Mr. Temple, are you there, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Select Board members. Tom Temple, Director of Public Works. Currently, from October 1st to October 29th, the pumpage for that time frame is 8.5 less than the same time last year, which equates to 2,482,000 gallons less. Our wells are currently running between 4 and 6 hours per day. Well 4 is running about 600 gallons per minute per day, and the next testing for that well will be January 4th, tentatively 2023. We have shut down well 5 currently, the temporary treatment, and when we shut down the GAC vessel, we also have started the draining process, which has been completed, and we look to winterize that for the up and coming winter. With respect to the permanent treatment, we're waiting for Weston and Sampson to submit the 75% design plans for our review. I have already given them back our comments from the 60% submittal that they had provided the office with. There was a lot of comments, so we're looking forward to the changes being made at the 75%. with wells 10 and 11. In the packet, I did provide a few photos of that. Robert Biao Company is working diligently. They finished up the footings and the foundation walls. The piping below the slab have all been tested. The plumbing below slab installed and ready for inspection. And the conduit work has been installed and ready for inspection as well. Weston and Sampson has completed the water line that's proposed in Mill Hill. That'll be a 12-inch water main replacement. And they're just waiting for our comments to get back to them on that. As you'll see in my report, I have indicated that we shouldn't do any real changes, or my recommendation, or the department's recommendation is just to keep things at its status quo. The reason for that is even though we had quite a bit of rain on October 26th, approximately 5 inches, the groundwater levels haven't changed enough to significantly change our opinion of where we should be. We're well below the normal average at this time of the year. So unless we have a real big winter or a lot of precipitation, I don't want to see ourselves into an issue in the early spring with the same drought conditions if that happens. So my recommendation is to hold fast where we are, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Okay, Tom, I have one quick question on 10. What, it looks like we're making really good progress on 10 and 11. When would they be delivering water?
That's going to be the fall of 2023, I believe, is what we're anticipating. If they continue at this pace, you know, we could see some change in happening sooner. But the big thing is to make sure that we have adequate water supply and fire suppression in the tank. So we're trying to make sure that you know, we keep things the way they are currently and not be behind the 8 ball in the springtime. So
just please, for my information, which wells are we actually pumping now? Not 5.
correct. 5 is offline.
Yeah.
Currently, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9, and 10 and 11 are being constructed as we speak.
Okay.
We have 8 is offline and 5 is offline.
Right. Okay. All right. Any comments or questions for Tom in his report, water report? Okay. All right, Mr. Temple. Thank you. I see a couple of hands up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I see a couple of hands up. Did I miss people on the agenda item requests and or announcements? Gloria, I see your hand up.
Yes, you did. It's Gloria Freeman,
Hi.
and I would like to request an agenda item. I read that the town of Harwich has lifted its water restrictions. They, like Chatham, are in a level 2 drought status. If Chatham is unable to lift its water restrictions, it appears that our water quantity problem is mostly due to our not being able to pump enough water, which we've talked about before. Since you have asked the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee to look at the issue of new wells, plus numerous other items, I was hoping that you might discuss as soon as possible asking the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee to prioritize this issue. And since Harwich seems to have adequate wells, excuse me, perhaps we should be thinking about buying land from them or renting land for a new well, since we were recently told that Chatham does not have many sites or perhaps any sites for wells. Planning, construction, and implementation takes many years to complete, so it seems to me that this issue needs to rise to the top of agenda items for Water and Sewer Advisory, if that is your priority. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gloria. I know that when we did charge the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee with coming up with a master plan, we made a point, a specific point of inserting the notion of a regional management of this one lens, if you want to call it the Monomoy lens. So I know that they're going to take a look at water and from a regional perspective. And I know that we also have other initiatives out there with the Selectmen's meeting that Shireen Davis is chair of, our Cape and Islands Selectmen's Meeting Council, is also looking at water as a regional issue. So we are looking at it as a regional issue, and I think it's very important that we do so. If in fact we have one lens, and that's what we're told that we have. We've also made it a point repeatedly at this meeting and expressed our concern of, do we have enough wells? Because we've been told by Dr. Duncanson that in fact there's enough water, that we just have to deliver more from wells. So that's why I asked the earlier question about wells 10 and 11, when are they going to come online? And that's why we continue to press whether or not we need additional wells in the town of Chatham or elsewhere. But more to come. Very much appreciate the interest and more to come. We've got a great newly reconstructed water advisory sewer, water and sewer advisory committee, I should say, and they get it and they're gonna get the job done. So anyway, so I'll ask Elaine, you have your hand up? I'm sorry, I apologize if I missed you earlier. I do apologize.
That's all right. I do have a couple of agenda item requests, but just to talk about this briefly. I don't think anyone's looking for us to necessarily totally lift the ban, but we are now at November 1st. By December 1st, we're all going to have to shut off our water anyway, so because our pipes are going to freeze. So if there could be a temporary suspension for the next month, we've got 4.5, 5 inches of rain, just so that people can get their stuff, clean off their patios and their furniture, and, do what we need to do to get it done. If we can do that, that would be great, and do it at our convenience rather than in the dark. I don't think that's asking a lot, so I would hope you would consider just doing that. And then it goes back into effect again. It's just to get us, buttoned up for the winter. So that's those comments. Do you want me to make my agenda item request now?
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have two. The first one is, I think I would appreciate an update from Eversource and town staff regarding what preparation has been done since the last meeting, I think in September, to prepare for the winter regarding repair and replacement of the poles. I think, there was a question, Eversource's responsibility versus Verizon. I think mostly it's Eversource's issue. They're the ones that have to transfer the power. My second request is that it was announced this morning that Eversource rates are going up 65% effective today, and that National Grid is going up 24%. Natural gas, is going up 24%. And home heating oil has gone up from $4.99 to $5.69 per gallon in the last 10 days. We've been told repeatedly now over the last week or so that Massachusetts will be experiencing brownouts this winter because we do not have enough fossil fuel to generate, the electricity and to provide home heating oil and gas. So I hope that will be looked at by the town staff in preparation for the emergency preparedness meeting that's going to be on November 15th, I think. I think this is a really huge problem that we have to face. Can the town do in the event that we are all in a position where we can't heat our homes through no fault of our own, but because of the lack of energy coming into the state. So that's it for that. I have a comment on one of the agenda items, but I think it's really important. It's the big elephant in the room, and this is going to go on for a long time. I don't think there's any clear indication where we're not going to have energy problems going through this winter, and that has to be a priority. Thank you very much.
Okay, Elaine, thank you. I see Dr. Bob's hand is up and Tom Temple's hand is up. Dr. Bob.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to comment. I can't speak to the specific reasons why the town of Harwich dropped their water ban, but as the board's aware, we had 2 reasons for recommending the water bans to you earlier this year. One of them was the infrastructure issue, which was subsequently addressed with the temporary treatment facility at Well 5. But the other was the fact that we are in a naturally occurring drought situation. As of today, the state continues Cape Cod in a level 2 or significant drought. And the U.S. Drought Monitor at the federal level has the Cape, specifically the eastern third of the Cape from roughly the Dennis-Yarmouth line over to Chatham and up to Provincetown, still in what they call a D1 or moderate drought. I sent around earlier today, and I can share with you if you would like me to, the groundwater levels as of today, indicating that even though we had significant rainfall last week, groundwater levels are still extremely low. They are starting to trend upward, but as we've indicated before, they are starting from such a low level after the last couple of years of drought conditions that it's going to take significant rain or snow melt, as Tom indicated, over the course of the winter season to prepare for next summer. So, Tom and I have spoken, the town manager and I have spoken. My recommendation is to keep these bans, the current water bans, in effect because of the fact we don't have an infrastructure issue anymore, but we do have this naturally occurring drought, and we want to prepare the town as best we can for next summer with the unknown of what may happen this winter. So I just wanted to indicate that we have two issues that we've been dealing with this year. We have addressed one of them, but we still have the second one out there over which we have no control. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bob, and I didn't see any of the select board members take issue with Tom's recommendations, and which obviously are based on your opinions as well. Tom, your hand is up.
Yeah, I did want to mention to the Water and Sewer Commission as well as the Water and Sewer Advisory Board that I did receive late this afternoon from Weston and Sampson their water distribution system hydraulic study and capital improvement plan, which I will get to Jill so she can distribute it to all parties.
Good.
I just wanted to let you know that I did receive that, and that should help you see where the system is all as a whole.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Dr. Bob. Anybody else on water out there? Okay. Anybody here? I don't see any hands up here either. Okay. Our next item on our agenda is a public hearing, utility pole hearing, a new pole. I do believe that our clerk may have to read this. It's a public hearing.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate for me to read the notice.
Yep, please.
The Chatham Select Board will hold a public hearing at 5:30 PM on Tuesday, November 1, 2022, to consider a joint petition from Verizon New England, Inc. and NStar Electric Company doing business as Eversource Energy to place one jointly owned new pole, P27/1.5, on the northwesterly side of Cross Street at the side of 569 Main Street. This pole is requested by Eversource to accommodate electrical upgrades. The public is welcome to attend the meeting in person or to participate via a link in the meeting's posted agenda. All interested parties are encouraged to attend, and that is signed by the Select Board.
Thank you, Clerk Shell. Okay, anybody from Verizon or NStar at this meeting tonight online? Nobody is here in person. Anybody on the staff that wants to speak to this? It's usually fairly straightforward. I don't know if there's any
Tom
issues.
Temple, DPW Director.
Oh, Tom Temple. Okay, I'm sorry. Tom, your hand is up. Thank you.
Yeah, where we just spent a lot of money on Cross Street, they were told that they were going to do direct drilling for this across the road area. If they, for whatever reason, have to do any digging out there, I would recommend that the town, and I'll include it in my permit, that they are to do infrared process as their final treatment if they should have to dig for whatever reason.
Okay. I don't hear from any butters or anything. Okay, Mr. Nicastro.
I don't know if there are any members of the public who want to speak to it.
I don't see any hands up at all, Dean.
I mean, I will move approval as requested. I did I drive by that every day, but it's right across from the town offices. There are a lot of 3 poles there now, pretty close, so they're going to be putting this in the middle of in between 2 other poles. They'll be close together, but I guess they need it, so I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
And the chair says aye as well. Thank you very much. We have a public comment on business agenda. This evening, we have one-day permits for Sundance Clothing, Fisherman's Daughter, Ports and Company, Chatham Clothing Bar, a letter of comment on the Eversource 5-year vegetation management plan and our goals and objectives for our 23-24 year going forward. Comments from the public on our business agenda this evening. Elaine, you mentioned you wanted to comment. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. This is regarding item 8.3, goals and objectives.
Yes.
In reading the value statements, there are 9 of them. And nowhere in there do I see anything about public health and safety, which in my view is probably the single most important role of government. This kind of ties into what I spoke to earlier. I think that that should be a priority item and should drive pretty much everything over the next year or two, because we don't know what's going to happen. And it's not listed. I see a lot of spending. I see a lot of minutia. They're all very important. But I think in terms of the value statement, I would like to see in there that the priority of this town is public safety and health. And it's not there. So that's my comment. There's an awful lot of material in there. I don't know if you're going to be making decisions on it, but I mean, it was pretty overwhelming in terms of all the information. Hopefully there'll be other opportunities for the public to speak to those. But I would ask that that be added as a value for the town and their mission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. And Gloria, your hand is up as well.
Yes, thank you. I too want to address your agenda item regarding your goals and objectives. I respectfully suggest that water, quality and quantity, remains the single most important issue for most townspeople, and ask that you will continue to keep it at the top of your list. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Gloria. Yep, both comments, thank you, yep. Okay, where am I here? So we have special one-day wine and malt beverage only permits. Sundance Clothing is the first up here. Any representatives from Sundance Clothing this evening here? Shauna is not online. Let's see what we have.
Shauna's here.
Is Shauna online? Yeah, go ahead.
If Shauna's online, this is kind of this is an all encompassing. This is not toward one of the applicants, or this is kind of just as we're getting to the season of the one-day alcohol licenses and stuff. In the packet, there was a mention that several locations who had not received one-day alcohol licenses were verbally warned of some of their operations of serving alcohol without the one-day permit. I guess a couple questions is, one, have we had any violations of those who have received the one-day permit last year? And do we have enough, I'm trying to think how to phrase this, being very clear on the message that to have these establishments not only pull the one-day applications, but to abide by the guidelines and safety guidelines, because I know like last year, people were walking in with little glasses of wine to my establishment. I wish they brought one for me, but hey, whatever. But if something were to happen that is connected to that establishment, it could be very detrimental to that business for what is should be a fun activity. But I guess my question is, do all the establishments realize the significance of not abiding by the rules and what the liability and negative, impact to them could be? And I guess that's my question.
Is that to me?
Yes,
This is Shauna.
Why not? To you. You can start, Shauna, and then we can weigh in.
Sure. I think the intent of the more comprehensive agenda report is to bring to light those situations where businesses aren't following the state law, and it's not just merely the town's regulations, but this is state law, and that increasingly as we are required to notify the state of every special one-day license that the board issues, it could come onto the ABCC's radar that there's a large event in town, and they may, completely within their rights, send an investigator in. And I want to make sure that the businesses follow the rules to protect themselves and their patrons, because they could be hit with very heavy fines from the state if all of those rules and regulations are not followed. So that's why I wanted just to bring that to the board's attention. The 4 applicants that are on the agenda tonight received the agenda report for their information as well, so that we can all sort of be on the same page moving forward for this season and seasons beyond.
All right, cool, thank you.
Okay, so Shauna, you remind folks when they apply of this stricture?
Yes, and I've been handing the the section on special one-day licenses from the local regulations out with applications.
All right, okay. Mr. Shell, then Ms. Davis.
Yeah, I just question, I'm assuming that we're relying on the police department essentially as part of their regular patrolling responsibilities to keep an eye out for compliance with these regulations, and that begs, if that's true, that begs the question, are they fully aware of and essentially consonant with the all of the regulations, so that if they see activity that's not in compliance, they can deal with it, and if not, is there any other? And I certainly would encourage a pretty strong urging to every recipient of a permit that they comply strictly with the terms of the permit and the rules.
Yes, through the chair, this is
Yes.
Shauna.
Yep.
I have had conversations with Chief Anderson about this topic. He is aware I've requested perhaps an additional foot patrol downtown for the stroll. He is tracking the applications, the approved applications in a calendar file for the PD to be aware of who has and who has not been issued a license.
Okay, good. Ms. Davis.
I think it would be good to take another approach to that as well, and I'd like to recommend that the town manager do some proactive outreach, maybe to the chamber, in sending along the rules and regulations around the one-day alcohol, and perhaps he'll be able to give either the president or the chamber director an overview of those rules that they can share with the membership.
No, I think that's perfect, Shireen. This select board for years has been fairly generous in its approval. In fact, I can't remember the last time we didn't approve, but I think it's with the caveat, with the understanding that folks abide by the regulations. Mr. Nicastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is also addressed to Shauna. One of the applicants contemplates the possibility of serving the alcoholic beverage outside in an alleyway. That seems inconsistent with your recommendation that we not approve outdoor use. Am I missing something here, or should we?
No, that's correct. I do not recommend any outdoor service, just to make it very clear that if anyone is outside on the street with an open container, that it's a violation.
Can we? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to also address Ms. Davis's suggestion. I have had discussions with Mary Kavanaugh at the chamber, and I believe she is including information on special one days in the chamber's next newsletter.
Great, Shauna, thank you.
So Shauna, are we able to approve these in a group, or do we have to take them one by one?
They can be approved in a group as long as the date and time and address for each of the applicants is noted.
Mr. Chairman, I want to offer a motion that the board approve the special one-day wine and malt beverages only permits for Sundance Clothing for 497 Main Street, December 9th, 2022, 12 noon to 10 p.m. Fisherman's Daughter, 521 Main Street, December 9th, 2022, 4 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. with the qualification that service be indoors only. Ports and Company, 595 Main Street, December 9th, 2022, 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. And Chatham Clothing Bar, 534 Main Street, December 9th, 2022, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Second.
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Okay, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
And the chair says aye as well. Thank you, and thank you, Shauna. Okay. Next item is consider a letter of comment on the 5-year Eversource Vegetation Management Plan. This is teed up to us by Laura Kelly, who has appeared in person, gosh, probably 4 or 5, 6 times at that present. She's every year. And there is a letter attached that we got in our package that is very similar to what we've sent in the past to Mass Department of Agricultural Resources, stating our overall sensitivity with respect to the use of herbicides on the right of way. So I'm very much in favor of reissuing this, if you will. But Mr. Metters, please.
No, and this is not something, it's not a new conversation for this board. We've been very supportive in the past, and I would support that we continue to be supportive, and I would actually move that we endorse the letter as drafted, authorize the chair to sign it on behalf of the select board, and submit it. So.
Second.
I think we're good, and we're going to wait for Mr. Castro to come back. Laura has been a wonderful advocate. She's, I don't know if is she online this evening?
I don't see her.
I don't see her online.
No.
But what I appreciate, she never gives up. I mean, this is a woman that has every year, every time they're going to renew the vegetation management plan, she has been in front of us, in front of all the towns on the Cape. And so much so though, now she just need to write an email and a letter and or pro forma letters.
I think most of the Cape communities have always supported. I mean, as far as my memory serves me, we've had multiple towns supporting this consistently.
Some of the towns, I know like Harwich has taken and they have community gardens underneath some of the right-of-ways.
So
I just think it's a really cool concept to take and utilize that area in that way. I'd like to learn more about how they're doing that.
There's a community garden on Bay Road as you go from Pleasant Bay up to Route 39, that cutover. I think there's a community garden right underneath the high wires there, so that is an interesting approach. It certainly provide a lot of our gardeners with more acreage upon which to garden. Well, let's take a vote. And
So
we'll
I'll just ask the question, do we have reason to believe that the sentiments that we're expressing are actually being observed and taken into account?
Yeah. To some degree.
I mean, I would say the lack of responsiveness is glaring on the part of Eversource. I mean, it's simpler to spray with herbicides than it is to use a lot of cutting, which is what we prefer.
Or goats.
Just cut it back, or goats, yeah.
There are some goats down there.
Mr. Chair, we have Dr. Bob with his hands up.
Dr. Bob, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to comment in 2 areas. One in response to Mr. Schell's comment. This is part of the required public process by DAR to solicit comments from all the towns through which Eversource rights of way pass. What you're commenting on tonight is actually the 5-year vegetation management plan. And then each year we also get notified about the yearly operations plan for more specific areas. So what's before you tonight basically covers the entire Cape from the canal all the way up through Provincetown. Yep. And then each year we get notified if they are going to be doing any work in Chatham per se, as opposed to work in other towns. As you probably may or may not be aware, Eversource has significantly cut back on their right-of-way of Chatham. Several years ago, they changed the main line. It used to cut up through an easement area by Goose Pond and others, and they now come up Route 137, then along Old Queen Anne Road, and then they cross country over Muddy Creek into Harwich. And the rest of it, the southern portion, actually goes through an easement through the town forest area. So while the idea of, a community garden is a great idea, the amount of area would be significantly limited in Chatham where something like that could take place. Because most of the area from Queen Anne to Muddy Creek is wetland or severe topography, and a lot of the other area is within the town forest, so it's already protected land for watershed purposes. So unlike, Harwich and some of the other towns where they still have a lot of cross-country right-of-way, those opportunities are limited in Chatham. With regard to whether or not, anything has actually changed, I think it has changed over the years. Eversource has significantly cut back on their use of herbicides. The vegetation that they've been working on over the last, decade plus to kind of convert it from trees to shrubby vegetation is actually starting to work. We're seeing that more and more, that we don't see the tall trees growing in the right of way, but we see more of the low vegetation, the shrub type stuff. That was the ultimate goal of this. So, while they still use herbicides when they feel it's appropriate, they are doing it in much more limited circumstances than they have in the past. So I think all the publicity and the feedback and the pushback from the Cape towns and the Cape Cod Commission and groups like POCA, I think that is having some success.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that input. Appreciate it. So it's been moved and seconded, Mr. DeCastro, and we need a vote.
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
And the chair says aye as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Bob. That was good. All righty, our next item is our Select Board goals and objectives for 2023 to 2024. We're looking a year out now, and some discussion of Chatham 365 Task Force recommendations as input. I defer to your wisdom. I think this is kind of that we're teeing this up for this year. I'm not sure we want to get real involved in rank voting or anything tonight. What I thought has been valuable in years past, and again, I defer to you guys, that we fill out our prioritizations, our rankings, and do that quickly. We're not meeting next week, but perhaps we'll bring it back for a board agenda item on the 15th and have some discussion about priorities then. I'm not going to speak for you. I'll speak for my opinion. I can't imagine our disagreeing on too many of the priorities that we have here this year and or from years past. We've heard an articulation of maybe some more sensitivity to values tonight, and I think both points were well made. And I'm sure you'll see an articulation of those values in some of our priorities as well. So appreciate that input. So I turf it to you guys and tell me what you'd like to do, and I guess I'll start with Ms. Davis. She had her hand up, and then go to Mr. Castro.
Thank you. No, I agree. I think that would be a good first steps to do it. In the past, we've created this session as a working section, a working group. Like we spoke amongst ourselves, and we were pretty frank. And
right.
I don't know, we must have spent maybe an hour on a Saturday. I'm not saying we have to do that because everybody's limited with time, but I think we should consider it being a working session for the board.
Okay. Mr. Nicastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine with what Shireen was saying. I just would say, apropos of the comments we had from Gloria Freeman and Elaine Gibbs, I certainly would, when we do meet to do this, I would certainly be willing to add something about public health and safety, especially given we've gone through the COVID crisis, and that took preeminence. And I think we have, in the past year or two, assigned priority number one to water, and we can certainly discuss that. I'd like to also take the opportunity to close the loop on something that I brought up at the summit on the budget last week, and I've had a couple of conversations with the town manager on the subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I consider within the parameters of our value statement number one on financial health of the town, because we're discussing DEI in the context of budgeting. And I did raise some questions because I felt that this board was, given our responsibility for setting town policy, that this matter, which I fully support, I want to really clarify that, I fully support DEI in town budgeting, and I understand that the town staff and the town manager, under her leadership, have been undertaking the budget process, I guess intuitively, through what has been referred to as the lens of DEI. And I also think it's a policy issue, and that's why I wanted the opportunity, if the board is interested in endorsing that concept. I do want to also say, because I didn't take the opportunity last week, I really felt that the Budget Summit presentation, and I've attended all 12, was the most efficient and easiest to follow that I've heard. And every year it gets better, and I think it reflects significant preparation and work that was done by the town manager and her staff. And I want to give a special plaudit to Alex and Leah for their presentations last week. But I just really wanted to get that out. These terms, as Mr. Shell mentioned last week, they are terms that give rise to diversity of opinion and in their application. Yesterday, one of the justices on the Supreme Court said he didn't know what the meaning of diversity was, and so people can argue them. And I did raise a question about, or express my view of what the word equity means. So I just really wanted to bring that to the board, because it's a policy matter. It may be something else beyond policy in terms of practice, but I think it's important for this board to endorse that concept in our budgeting. So I just throw that out. I'm not asking for a vote. I think if there's consensus on the board, then the town manager, I think, and the board will be in the same place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Castro. Thoughts or comments from fellow select board members, Mr. Shell?
Yeah, I don't want to unduly extend this conversation. In the discussion section of the memo as part of our materials, there is an invitation to comment and give some sense of preferences. I thought the outline there of A, B, and C was pretty much what you're proposing for us to do. With respect to the other suggestions, I think that can abide the discussion, but I think a working session among the five of us is pretty much what we need. I do want to say, because I can't leave it unaddressed entirely, Dean, we have in Chatham a bunch of issues where people feel very strongly on two sides or more of those issues. And the one thing that seems to me to be ameliorative, if that's a word, is when people feel like they are working together and contributing to a mutual solution. And that, to me, is that's the working result of at least the inclusion part of DEI, and so I want to say I'm a big fan of that, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Mr. Metters, yeah.
No, I mean, I think as far as the goal settings, I mean, the little round table that we used to have, we didn't do it last year. I think it just was COVID maybe, but we did virtual. Okay, we did do a virtual. Yeah, sorry. But those, I think, are actually beneficial. I think they're a nice, healthy, straightforward discussion we have. I don't see a lot of the issues being varied from this committee or from this board. I think we clearly know where some of the ones are going to hit. So the process that we followed in the past, I would be comfortable continuing with how we've been doing them. And just to respond to the DEI question, it's a term, it's a philosophy that we're going to have to incorporate. It's current. The school systems are bringing it in. It's something that we're going to philosophically, mechanically, whatever, incorporate into our conversations and our policies. It is going to be interesting how it is defined, how we interpret it, how we implement it, because I do think it's not black and white. I think there's some interpretations on it. That's just the reality of it. But we are going to have to incorporate it in our conversations and our policies, and hopefully get more positive than negative out of it. And you know, it's a reality. It's part of the conversation now. So, and hopefully we can, you know, make it a benefit versus a distraction, which I hope it does not become. But it is part of the process now.
Thank you, Mr. Metters. Anybody else? Okay, so I did misspeak, I should say. Kick it off tonight, and then our worksheets distributed tomorrow. I mean, we have them in the package. Then return, you know, fairly quick turnaround, November 18th, and then have a session on the 29th in our regular meeting, or a special session. Obviously, we tape it on December 3rd, a Saturday. I don't know if we need that. It's up to you guys. I think we could do it in a regular meeting. I think that's fine with me. I don't know what you guys think. Gives us a little bit more time to cogitate and to contemplate. In terms of DEI, I think DEI discussion will fall out inside that discussion. You know, I think it's a conceptual framework that much of what we do and has to kind of run through that lens. But you know, I'm not a vigilant devotee. I am one that thinks it's a valuable tool at times. I'll leave it there. Mike's comment about inclusion is very apt. But anyway, and I think it'll follow as part of our budget discussions, and I think it's preemptive at this point. But I also want to say that I did find the addition of the 365 just the refreshing. They did. I read through it. They did such a good job. That committee did such a good job, I think, in a wide range of recommendations. So I'm going to be thinking about maybe having a biannual meeting or bringing up some of the issues that maybe not as the top 5 priorities, but certainly that's another lens, I think, that is incredibly valuable, that really draws from a different segment of our town that is very important to us in terms of overall diversity. So anyway, I think that it was very valuable to revisit it as well. It's a couple years old now, right? 2 years old? 2019, 2020. So anyway, I say if we haven't, you know, and I think, Mike, it's great for you, it's great for me to, as a refresher, it's great for you to kind of be reintroduced or introduced to it. So anyway, okay to follow that scenario, that process, I should say? Okay, good. Go thanks. All right, Jill, you got that, right?
Yep, thank you.
Yep, thank you. And then we're going to go into an executive session right now. So Dean, I'll rely on you to tee up our motion here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Select Board go into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, parenthesis, town manager, close parenthesis, with no return to open session.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
And the chair says aye as well. Thank you, folks.